Padre Pio once observed a married woman flirting with a colleague during a coffee break. Just a smile, just a joke, just a glance held a little too long. Nothing serious, she thought. But what Padre Pio saw in that moment sent shivers down his spine, because behind that seemingly innocent game, he saw something no one else could see. He saw the woman's soul beginning to crack. He saw a door opening, and he saw something enter through that door. The story I'm about to tell you today comes directly from testimonies collected in San Giovanni Rotondo. It was kept secret for decades because the Church struggled to explain it to the faithful. How do you tell millions of Catholics that a seemingly harmless flirtation, a knowing glance, a flattering attention given or received outside of marriage could have eternal consequences for their soul? I know what you might be thinking. You think I'm going to talk about adultery. You think this message is for those who actually cheat on their spouses. No, this message is far more troubling than that. This message is for you who have never cheated on anyone, for you who are faithful in your actions, for you who think that as long as you don't cross the line, everything is fine. Padre Pio could see souls. It was his most terrifying and most wonderful gift. When people came to him for confession, he didn't need them to speak. He already saw everything. He saw every thought, every intention, every small compromise that the soul had made with itself. And what he saw in the souls of married people who were innocently flirting compelled him to utter words that the Church took 50 years to understand. But before I reveal what he said, I must ask you a question that Padre Pio asked every married person who came to see him, a question that might make you uncomfortable. Here it is. When you are away from your spouse, do you behave exactly the same way as when he or she is present? If your answer is no, even for the smallest things, then what I am about to reveal will change your life, because Padre Pio saw exactly what happens in the invisible realm when that difference exists. The problem of flirtation in marriage doesn't begin where you think it does. It doesn't start with an inappropriate text or a secret rendezvous. It begins much earlier. It begins in a moment so seemingly insignificant that you don't even notice it. Padre Pio called it the moment of the first crack, and this moment always arrives in the same way. You are somewhere, at work, at a meeting, in a store, and someone looks at you. Not just any look, a look that makes you feel seen, a look that makes you feel interesting, a look that makes you feel alive in a way that you haven't felt in a long time. And at that moment, you have a choice, an invisible choice, a choice that no one sees. You can look away and continue on your way, or you can hold that gaze for a fraction of a second longer, just a fraction of a second. That's all it takes. Padre Pio said that this fraction of a second is the most dangerous moment in the life of a married person. Because in that fraction of a second, the soul makes a choice, and that choice opens or closes a door. Let me tell you what happened with this woman in San Giovanni Rotondo. It was in 1958. Her name was Emily, and she was from New York City. She had been married for 8 years to a good man, a hard-working man, a faithful man, but a man who had stopped looking at her the way he used to. Emily wasn't unhappy. She loved her husband. She loved her children. She went to Mass every Sunday. She recited her rosary. She confessed regularly. In everyone's eyes, she was an exemplary wife and mother. But something had changed within her, something so subtle that she hadn't even noticed it. Until that day when a colleague paid her a compliment. It wasn't an inappropriate compliment. He simply said that her dress looked nice on her, that's all. But the way he said it, the way he looked at her while saying it, that way awakened something in Emily that she thought was dormant forever. She blushed, she smiled, she said thank you in a voice a little different from her usual voice. And that evening, on her way home, She thought back to that moment. Not for long, just a few seconds, just enough to feel that little thrill again. In the following days, Emily began to pay attention to her outfit when she went to work. Nothing excessive, just a little more attention, a little more care. She told herself that it was normal to want to be presentable. She told herself that it wasn't for him, it was for her, to feel good. But Padre Pio, years later, told her exactly what was happening during those mornings when she was choosing her outfit. He told her, "My child, every time you prepared yourself thinking about that look, you were inviting something into your house." Emily didn't understand. She hadn't done anything wrong. She had never touched this man. She had never said anything inappropriate to him. They had simply exchanged glances and smiles for a few months. Glances and smiles that her husband had never seen. That's when Padre Pio revealed something to her that chilled her to the bone. He told her, "I see what you cannot see. I see the cracks in your soul, and I see what has entered through those cracks." Emily wanted to know what it was. Padre Pio hesitated. What he saw was difficult to explain, but he knew she needed to understand. So he told her. He told her that with every glance exchanged with that man, a small part of her soul was detaching from her marriage. Not physically, not consciously, but spiritually. An invisible energy was leaving her home to go towards that man. And that energy was leaving a void that something else was filling. Padre Pio told her, "You have not committed adultery with your body, but you have begun to commit it with your soul. And the enemy of the human soul knows this door very well. It is his favorite door, because it is a door that people never guard." Emily began to cry. She didn't know. She really didn't know. How could she have known that a simple smile, a simple glance, could have such consequences? Padre Pio then told her something that he had never told anyone. He told her about a vision he had had years before. A vision that explained why innocent flirtation was one of the enemy's most effective weapons against marriage. In this vision, Padre Pio had seen a married couple. They loved each other, they were faithful, they prayed together. But around their house he saw a light, a golden light that formed an invisible shield. This light, the Virgin Mary explained, was the grace of the sacrament of marriage. It was the divine protection that surrounded each couple united before God. But in his vision, Padre Pio also saw how this light could weaken. He saw that every time one spouse gave a piece of their attention, their energy, their heart, to someone other than their partner, even innocently, even without physical contact, the light dimmed a little. This wasn't divine punishment. It wasn't God withdrawing his protection. It was a natural consequence, like a plant receiving less water because the water is going elsewhere. The plant doesn't die immediately, but it begins to wither, slowly, imperceptibly. And Padre Pio saw in his vision what awaited outside this light. He saw shadows, shadows constantly seeking cracks, cracks through which they could enter. And the easiest crack to create, the Virgin Mary told him, was that of a divided heart. When Emily heard this, she understood for the first time what had been happening in her life for months. She understood why she and her husband were arguing more often. She understood why her prayers seemed less effective. She understood why she felt increasingly empty inside, even when she had no reason to be. She asked Padre Pio, "My Father, what should I do now? How can I repair what I've done?" What Padre Pio told her is the reason I'm making this video today. His answer contained 3 elements that every married person should know. 3 elements that can not only repair the cracks, but also prevent new ones from forming. But before I reveal these 3 elements, I must tell you about something even more important. I must tell you about what happens when we ignore these cracks. When we continue playing this little innocent game, thinking it's nothing. Padre Pio had seen hundreds of cases similar to Emily's. Men and women who thought that as long as they didn't cross the line, everything was fine, and he had seen how these cases evolved when nothing was done. There were 3 stages, he said, 3 invisible stages that always led to the same place. The first stage was what he called comparison. This is the stage where you start comparing your spouse to the other person, not consciously, not deliberately, but subtly. You start noticing what the other person does that your spouse doesn't. You start appreciating qualities in the other that you no longer see in your spouse. And without realizing it, you start judging your marriage through the prism of this other person. Padre Pio said that this stage was the most dangerous because it was the most invisible. You could stay there for years without ever realizing it. Years slowly eroding the love and respect you had for your spouse. Years creating new cracks every day. The second stage was what he called secrecy. This is the stage where you start hiding things. Not big things, little things. You don't mention that you talked to that person. You don't say that you ran into them. You start having thoughts that you don't share with your spouse, thoughts that belong only to you. Padre Pio said that secrecy was like a slow poison. It didn't kill immediately, but it separated. It created an invisible distance between the spouses, a distance made of unspoken words and guarded thoughts. And this distance grew a little more each day. The third stage was what he called justification. This is the stage where you start telling yourself that you deserve better, that your spouse doesn't understand you, that if you're seeking attention elsewhere, it's because you're not receiving enough at home. This stage was the last before the fall, because once you've justified the innocent flirtation, it becomes much easier to justify the next step. Padre Pio had seen entire families destroyed by this process. Families that had started with a simple smile and ended in divorce. Children who had grown up in the pain of separation. Souls that had drifted away from God because they had lost faith in love. And the most tragic thing, he said, is that all of this could have been avoided. All of this could have been stopped at the first stage. If only people understood what was really happening when they played this little innocent game. Emily listened to Padre Pio with tears in her eyes. She recognized every stage. She was somewhere between the first and the second. She hadn't started justifying yet, but she had already started comparing, and she had already started keeping secrets. Padre Pio looked at her with infinite tenderness. He saw her suffering. He saw her confusion, and he also saw her sincere desire to repair what she had done. That's why he decided to reveal to her the 3 elements that he usually reserved for the most serious cases. The first element was the prayer of attention. Padre Pio explained to her that attention is one of the most precious resources of the human soul. What we give our attention to receives a piece of our spiritual energy. That's why Jesus said that whoever looks at a woman with lust has already committed adultery in their heart. It's not an exaggeration. It's a profound spiritual truth. The prayer of attention consisted of consciously offering your attention to God every morning before leaving your house. Saying to him, "Lord, today I choose to give my attention to good things. I choose to keep my heart for my spouse. I choose to close the doors that should not be opened." This simple prayer, practiced every day, created an awareness of what you were giving your attention to during the day. And this awareness allowed you to regain control of your gaze, your thoughts, your energy. The second element was what Padre Pio called the return of energy. He explained to Emily that all the energy she had given to this other man needed to be brought back into her marriage. How? By consciously making gestures of love and attention towards her husband, gestures she had stopped making, looks she had stopped giving, words she had stopped saying. Every time she thought of the other man, instead of dwelling on that thought, she had to transform it into an action for her husband. If she thought, "He complimented me," she had to immediately compliment her husband. If she thought, "He looks at me with interest," she had to immediately look at her husband with interest. It was a discipline, but it was also a healing. The third element was complete confession, not a confession to her husband, because that could cause more harm than good, but a confession to God before a priest of all the looks, all the thoughts, all the moments where her heart had been divided. Padre Pio told her that this confession had to be made with perfect contrition, not out of fear of hell, but out of love for God and for her husband. Emily followed Padre Pio's advice. She practiced the prayer of attention every morning for months. She brought her energy back into her marriage. She made the confession that Padre Pio had asked of her. And something miraculous happened. The light that Padre Pio had spoken of, that golden light that protects marriage, began to shine around her home once more. The arguments with her husband lessened. She began to see the qualities in her husband that she had stopped seeing. And that emptiness she felt inside began to fill with something much more satisfying than the attention of a stranger. Years later, Emily returned to see Padre Pio. She wanted to thank him. Her marriage had become stronger than it had ever been. Her husband had changed too, even though she had never told him anything about what had happened. It was as if the healing of her soul had automatically healed their relationship. Padre Pio told her something that day that she never forgot. He said, "My child, what you experienced was not a failure. It was a learning experience. Now you know how the enemy attacks marriages, and you know how to defend yourself. Use this knowledge to help other women and other men who are going through the same ordeal." That is exactly what Emily did. She became a counselor for struggling couples in her parish. She helped dozens of marriages to rebuild, and she always started by telling them the story of what Padre Pio had seen. And Brian, I want to talk to you, because if you are still watching this video, it's because somewhere, something in you has resonated with this story. Maybe you are Emily. Maybe you are in this situation right now. Maybe you are telling yourself that it's nothing, that you haven't done anything wrong, that as long as you don't cross the line, everything is fine. I'm not here to judge you. I'm here to tell you what Padre Pio would have said if he could speak to you today. I'm here to show you what he saw, and I'm here to give you the tools that he gave to those who came to see him. But there's something even deeper that I must reveal to you. Something that Padre Pio only said to those who were ready to hear it. Something that explains why innocent flirting is so dangerous. Why it's not just a matter of morality or rules. Why it's a matter of life or death for the soul. Padre Pio had a very particular vision of marriage. A vision that came directly from his mystical experiences. He said that marriage was not simply a contract between two people. It wasn't simply a social or even a religious union. Marriage was a living image of the love between Christ and the Church. That may seem abstract, but for Padre Pio, it was extremely concrete. He saw each married couple as a small church, a small holy community, a place where the grace of God could dwell and spread. And when he saw a couple whose marriage was healthy and protected, he literally saw the presence of God between them. But when he saw a couple whose marriage was fractured by divided hearts, he saw something else. He saw the presence of God diminishing. He saw grace withdrawing. And he saw the space that remained being filled by something else. This something else, Padre Pio didn't always call it by its name. Sometimes he simply spoke of darkness. Sometimes he spoke of confusion. Sometimes he spoke of the enemy. But it was always the same reality. A reality that our physical eyes cannot see, but that our souls feel deeply. That's why so many people who flirt innocently end up feeling empty inside, even when nothing serious has happened, even when the line has never been crossed. They feel empty because something precious has been given away, something that didn't belong to them, something that belonged to their marriage. And that's why so many marriages die without anyone understanding why. People say, we never cheated on each other, we were always faithful. But even so, something died between us. We don't know when, we don't know how, but it's dead. Padre Pio knew when and how. He saw it. He saw every moment where the heart had been divided. He saw every look given to someone else. He saw every thought kept secret. And he saw how all these little things, accumulated day after day, month after month, year after year, had eventually killed what should have lived forever. But the good news, and it really is good news, is that all of this can be repaired. Padre Pio saw it too. He saw marriages that seemed dead come back to life. He saw divided hearts reunite. He saw the golden light begin to shine around homes that had been in darkness for years. And he saw that the key to this healing was not complicated. It didn't require great sacrifices or painful efforts. It simply required a decision to close the doors that had been opened, a decision to bring one's heart back to where it should have always remained, a decision to choose one's marriage every day, every hour, every minute. You may have noticed that I haven't yet mentioned what happens when someone doesn't make that decision, when someone continues down the path of innocent flirting to its end. It's because this part of the story is hard to hear. But I must tell it to you because Padre Pio saw it too. And he asked me, through his spiritual heritage, to share it with those who need to hear it. Padre Pio recounted to several of his confessors a vision he had of purgatory, a specific vision concerning married people who had spent their lives flirting innocently without ever repenting. What he saw disturbed him deeply. He saw these souls in a particular state of suffering, not the suffering of fire, not physical suffering, but suffering much worse, the suffering of seeing clearly, for the first time, all the harm they had done without realizing it. They saw every time they had hurt their spouse without knowing it, every time they had stolen attention that was due to them, every time they had weakened the protection of their home. And they saw, too, the consequences of their actions on their children, on their grandchildren, on entire generations. For Padre Pio said that the cracks in a marriage do not stay in that marriage. They are passed down. Children who grow up in a home where the light is diminished grow up with less spiritual protection. They are more vulnerable to the same temptations. They bear the consequences of their parents' choices without ever knowing why. These souls in purgatory saw all of this, and their greatest suffering was not being able to go back, not being able to say to their spouse, "Forgive me, I didn't know," not being able to warn their children, not being able to repair what had been broken. Padre Pio said that some of these souls remained in this state for hundreds of years, not as punishment but as purification, until they completely understood what they had done, until they completely regretted every little moment of divided heart, until they were ready to enter into the presence of God with a heart finally unified. This vision had profoundly marked Padre Pio. That's why he was so severe with innocent flirting. That's why he never let pass what other confessors might have considered peccadillos. He knew what awaited those who did not repent, and he wanted to spare them that suffering. But he also knew that fear was not a sufficient motivation. Fear could change behavior temporarily, but only love could change the heart. That's why he always finished his conversations on this subject with a revelation of love. He would say, "My child, if you only knew how much God loves your marriage, if you knew how many graces he wants to give you through this union, if you knew what joy he feels when he sees two hearts truly united, You would never want to give your attention to someone else again, not out of fear, but out of desire to experience that joy fully, out of desire to receive those graces completely. He then recounted another vision, a vision of what happens when a couple really keeps their hearts for each other, when they go through temptations together, when they choose to close the doors that should be closed. In this vision, Padre Pio had seen an elderly couple. They had been married for 50 years. They had gone through all the trials of life together, and around them, golden light shone with an intensity he had seen nowhere else. This light, the Virgin Mary explained to him, was the fruit of 50 years of faithfulness, not just physical faithfulness, but faithfulness of the heart. 50 years of glances given only to the other, 50 years of thoughts shared, 50 years of hearts unified. And this light did not just stay around the couple, it spread. It touched their children, their grandchildren, their friends, their community. Padre Pio said that this couple, without knowing it, was spiritually protecting hundreds of people, simply by being faithful to each other. That's the promise that God makes to every couple who chooses to keep their hearts unified. A promise of light, a promise of protection, a promise of grace that spreads far beyond their own family. Now I want to give you something practical, something you can do today, something that Padre Pio recommended to all those who wanted to protect their marriage from this invisible threat. I call it the examination of the heart. It's a simple but powerful exercise. It only takes a few minutes, but it can reveal things you didn't see. Here's how to do it. Tonight, before you go to bed, take a moment of silence. Close your eyes and ask yourself these questions. First question, today, to whom did I give my attention? Not just my physical attention, my attention of the heart. Who did I think about? On whom did my eyes linger? With whom did I exchange glances or smiles that were not part of my obligations? Second question, today, did I compare my spouse to someone else? Even subtly, even in my thoughts? Did I notice in someone else something that I wished I saw in my spouse? Third question, today, did I keep a secret? Not a big secret, a little secret, a thought, a meeting, an exchange. Something that I did not mention to my spouse. If you answer yes to any of these questions, do not condemn yourself. Do not feel guilty. Simply do what Padre Pio recommended. Offer that moment to God. Ask Him for forgiveness and ask Him for the grace to do better tomorrow. And if you answer yes to these questions, day after day, week after week, then maybe it's time to do more. Maybe it's time to practice the 3 elements that Padre Pio gave to Emily: the prayer of attention, the return of energy, the full confession. I know this message is difficult, I know it can hurt, but I also know that Padre Pio would never have spoken to me about these things if he didn't think they could save souls. He would never have entrusted these visions to me if he didn't think they could save marriages. And that's exactly what I want to do today. Save souls, save marriages, save families, one video at a time. Before I finish, I want to tell you about something Padre Pio often said. He said that the Virgin Mary had a particular affection for married couples, that she prayed especially for them, that she wept when she saw marriages breaking, and he rejoiced when he saw couples choosing to stay together. He recommended all couples pray the rosary together. Not necessarily every day, but at least once a week. He said the rosary creates a shield around the couple, a shield that nothing can pierce, a shield made of the prayer of Mary herself. If you're married and you're not praying the rosary with your spouse, start today. If your spouse doesn't want to pray with you, pray alone for your marriage. Padre Pio said that just one spouse who prays can protect the whole household. The prayer of one covers the weaknesses of the other. And if you're not yet married but you're watching this video, Keep all of this in your heart for the day you are. Know that marriage is a treasure that must be protected, a treasure that the enemy will always want to attack. Prepare now for this battle. Learn now the rules of this invisible war. You've just discovered something that very few people know. You've just seen what Padre Pio saw when he looked into the souls of married people who were flirting innocently. You've received knowledge that can change your life and protect your family for generations. This video didn't come about by chance. The revelations that I share here come directly from the spiritual legacy of Padre Pio. They've been kept and passed down with care to reach you today. Each video like this takes hours of research in the archives of San Giovanni Rotondo, hours of prayer to discern what to share and how to share it. If what you've heard today has touched your heart, if you feel that this truth can help other souls in difficulty, then I invite you to be part of this mission. The super thanks button you see just below isn't just a button. It's your way of saying, yes, these truths must continue to be shared. Yes, other couples need to hear this message. When you click on that golden heart, you become a soldier of Padre Pio. You participate in protecting marriages and families everywhere. Now I want to leave you with something concrete, something you can start tonight. A practice that Padre Pio taught all the couples who came to see him and who really wanted to protect their marriage. I call it the ritual of 3 moments. It's a simple but extremely powerful ritual. It only takes a few minutes a day, but it can completely transform the quality of your relationship and the spiritual protection of your home. The first moment is the morning moment. Every morning before you leave your house, take 30 seconds to look your spouse in the eyes, not a distracted glance, a real look. A look that says, I see you, I choose you, I'm yours today. You don't need to say those words. The look is enough. Padre Pio said that this morning look creates an invisible connection that lasts all day, a connection that makes it much harder to give your attention to someone else. The second moment is the temptation moment. Every time you feel your attention drawn to someone else, every time a look or a smile makes you feel that little excitement, stop. Don't feel guilty. Don't judge yourself. Just do this. Immediately think of your spouse. Remember a moment when he or she made you feel loved, a moment of tenderness, a moment of joy, and mentally send your spouse all the love that you feel rising within you. Padre Pio said that this practice transforms temptation into opportunity. It transforms the energy that could have gone towards someone else into energy that strengthens your marriage. The third moment is the evening moment. Every evening before you go to sleep, do together or alone if your spouse doesn't share your faith. A short prayer for your marriage, a simple prayer. Lord, thank you for my spouse. Thank you for our marriage. Protect us tonight and tomorrow. Close the doors that need to be closed. Strengthen the walls that need to be strengthened. Make our love grow. Amen. Padre Pio said that this evening prayer was like sealing the house before night. It prevents the darkness from entering while you sleep. It allows the angels to watch over your union. If you practice these 3 moments for 30 consecutive days, you will see a transformation in your marriage. I don't promise you that everything will become perfect. I don't promise you that the temptations will disappear, but I promise you that the light around your home will become stronger. I promise you that your connection with your spouse will become deeper. And I promise you that the cracks will start to close. Padre Pio said that marriage is the most important battlefield of our time. The enemy knows it. That's why he attacks marriages with such intensity. But we have weapons. We have prayer. We have the sacraments. We have the grace of God. And we have the knowledge of his strategies. Now that you have this knowledge, you also have a responsibility, the responsibility to use it, the responsibility to protect your marriage, the responsibility to never again play this little innocent game that can cost so much. I'll end this video with one last story, a story that Padre Pio often told couples who had managed to rebuild their marriage after years of divided hearts. There was a couple who had come to see him after going through a terrible crisis, not a physical infidelity, but years of innocent flirtations on both sides, years of looks given to others, years of secret comparisons. Their marriage was almost dead. They hardly spoke to each other anymore. They lived like roommates. The light around their house was almost completely extinguished. Padre Pio had given them the same advice he gave Emily, the 3 elements, the ritual of 3 moments, and something more. He had asked them to renew their wedding vows, not officially, not at the church, but between themselves, before God, every year on their wedding anniversary. This couple followed his advice to the letter. For 5 years, they worked on their marriage. For 5 years, they closed the doors that had been opened. For 5 years, they brought their hearts back to each other. And after 5 years, they returned to see Padre Pio. When he saw them, he smiled, a radiant smile. He said to them, "I see the light around you. She shines brighter than she ever has. You've done something magnificent. You've saved your marriage. And in saving your marriage, you've saved your children and your grandchildren." The couple asked him what he saw exactly. Padre Pio told them, "I see 2 hearts that beat as one. I see a protection that extends over 3 generations. I see angels watching over your home, and I see the Virgin Mary smiling as she looks upon you. This is what I want for you. This is what Padre Pio wants for you. This is what God wants for you. A marriage where 2 hearts beat as one. A protection that extends to your children and grandchildren. Angels watching over your home. And the Virgin Mary smiling as she looks upon you. All of this is possible. All of this is within your reach. You simply have to make a choice. The choice to close those doors. The choice to guard your heart. The choice to protect what God has joined together. Make that choice today. Make it now. And watch your life transform. Tell me in the comments, have you ever flirted thinking it was harmless? What have you understood after hearing this message? Your testimonies can help others who are going through the same trial. So share what you've experienced. Share what you've learned. Share what you're going to do differently, starting today. I read all the comments, and I pray for each person who writes them. May the light of Padre Pio accompany you. May the protection of the Virgin Mary surround you, and may the love of God strengthen your marriage a little more each day.